She never imagined a simple act of kindness on a crowded plane would stop strangers in their tracks, bring tears to hardened faces, and reveal a secret that had been buried for decades. This is the unforgettable story of a woman who gave up her first-class seat to a veteran, only to hear words that stunned every passenger on board. And if you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button and show some love to her, because family is everything. The story begins on a bright morning at JFK International Airport. The terminal was buzzing with the usual chaos of departures, rushing travelers, and the impatient shuffle of people through long lines. Among them was Emily Carter, a young professional in her late 20s, carrying a leather briefcase and dressed in casual but sharp attire. She had just been upgraded to a coveted first-class seat, Seat 1A, after the airline recognized her loyalty as a frequent traveler. To most, it was a stroke of good luck, a chance to enjoy luxury and comfort. For Emily, who had been working tirelessly and barely sleeping, it felt like a small reward for years of effort. As passengers boarded the plane, Emily settled into her wide leather seat at the very front, relieved she wouldn't have to squeeze into the crowded rows of economy. She leaned back, closed her eyes, and allowed herself a rare moment of peace. But that peace was soon interrupted by the sound of shuffling feet and hushed whispers just a few rows back. An elderly man in a navy blue cap embroidered with the word Navy was making his way down the aisle, steadying himself against the seats. His back was slightly bent, his step slow but dignified. Most people barely glanced at him, absorbed in their phones or conversations. But Emily noticed. The man's face carried lines etched deep with time, and his hands trembled faintly as he clutched his boarding pass. She could see his ticket clearly. It was for a cramped seat in the very last row, right beside the restroom. Something in her heart shifted. Here was a man who had clearly served his country, someone who had likely endured hardships far greater than a tight seat on a crowded plane. And here she was, in luxury. Without hesitation, Emily stood up, caught the flight attendant's attention, and said clearly, "Please, give him my seat." The attendant looked surprised. "Ma'am, this is first class." "Are you sure?" Emily nodded firmly. "Yes. He deserves it more than I do." Gasps and murmurs spread among nearby passengers. The old veteran, caught off guard, tried to protest. "No, no, young lady. You keep your seat. I'll be just fine in the back." But Emily smiled and shook her head. "Sir, you've already done enough for all of us. Please, take it." The cabin fell silent as the exchange unfolded. The veteran, humbled and emotional, finally accepted. Slowly, he lowered himself into the plush first-class seat. Passengers clapped softly, some even tearing up. Emily walked back toward the rear of the plane, taking his place in the cramped seat by the restroom. It should have ended there, an inspiring story of kindness. But what happened next no one could have predicted. As the flight reached cruising altitude, the veteran asked to speak. With the permission of the flight attendants, he stood carefully, his voice surprisingly strong despite his years. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I need to tell you something. This young woman gave me her seat today, and I cannot let that go without explaining why it matters so much to me." All eyes were on him. Even the flight attendants paused, their trays suspended midair. "I served in the Navy for over 30 years. I've flown countless times, but I have never once sat in first class. Not because I couldn't afford it, though I couldn't, but because I never allowed myself to. I told myself that comfort was for other people, not for me. But there's more. The truth is, this very flight path has meaning. I am traveling to Washington, D.C., to finally receive a medal I refused decades ago. I refused it because I didn't think I was worthy." His voice broke slightly, and the passengers leaned in closer. He took a breath, then continued. 40 years ago, my unit was ambushed overseas. Many of my brothers didn't make it home. I carried survivor's guilt every day since. When they tried to give me a Medal of Honor, I turned it down. I thought I had failed them. But recently, one of the few surviving members of my unit wrote to me and said, "You need to accept it, for them, not for you." So today, I am on my way to finally do that. And this young woman, Emily, just gave me the seat of honor I never believed I deserved. The cabin was silent, except for the muffled sobs of a few passengers. Even the businessman across the aisle, who had been grumbling about overhead space minutes earlier, was now wiping his eyes. Emily herself, sitting far in the back, covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed by the gravity of what she had unknowingly stepped into. But the veteran wasn't finished. He looked toward the back, locking eyes with Emily. "You reminded me today that kindness still exists, that strangers can show honor when we least expect it. You gave me more than a seat, you gave me dignity. And I want everyone here to know that she deserves the applause, not me." At that moment, the entire plane erupted in clapping and cheers. Some passengers stood up, others reached out to pat the veteran on the shoulder as he slowly sat back down, tears glistening in his eyes. Emily, stunned, felt a rush of warmth and humility. She had never sought attention, only to do the right thing. But now she realized the impact one act of kindness could truly have. As the plane touched down hours later, strangers who had sat silently next to each other at the start of the journey were now chatting, sharing stories, and smiling through tears. That flight became unforgettable not because of turbulence or delays, but because one woman's decision to stand up changed the meaning of sitting down. So, the next time you're faced with a choice to keep comfort for yourself or give it to someone who deserves it more, remember Emily and the veteran on Flight 212. Their story proves that honor and gratitude still have the power to unite us. Now, I want to hear from you. From which part of the country are you watching this video? Drop your state or city in the comments. I'd love to know where this story is touching hearts today.